Hey everyone, today is Thursday, February 29th, and the game I like tonight is I like Orlando Magic giving 6.5 to the Utah Jazz. And now I know 6.5 is a lot of points, but the Magic are kind of rolling right now. The Jazz are struggling. I think they've only covered once in their last 9 or 10 games. I think it's 9. And that was against the lowly Spurs. Outside of that, they've been getting beat and not really being competitive. The only other game they've been competitive lately was a home loss to the Warriors. They even got squashed against the Hornets. So I like the Magic, and the Magic are rolling right now. They just after kind of playing 500 or below 500 basketball for a while, they've won. I think it's 8 straight, and they've moved right into the discussion to possibly not only avoid the play-in, but compete for that number 4 seed in the East. So Magic at home, given 6.5. They're my bet for the night.
You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
All right, for the first time in a long time, we are back with another episode of Hard Foul. I'm Jim with my brother Mike, as always. Hope you guys are all doing well. We haven't talked to you since well before the All-Star break, and the Celtics right now are on a 9-game win streak. Their longest of the season, I think, tied for the longest win streak in the NBA all year, with a few other teams. And it's something like the 6th or 7th 5-game win streak. So this is, they've just been consistently very, very good all season. And Mike, they've come out of the All-Star break, I think, playing, really good basketball. And, what's been really interesting to me, just to kick things off, is they kind of doing this a little bit differently than they did pre-All-Star break, where it was a lot of just, they were by far and away the runaway best first half team in the league. It was routine for them to score anywhere from 62 to 70 plus points in a half, and then shutting down their opponent on defense in the first half, and then just kind of, settling in and surviving a win or cruising to a win in the second half. To start post All-Star break, they've kind of taken the opposite approach, right? They've been a team that has felt their way out in the first half, have not really been an offensive juggernaut in the first half of games. And then the third quarters, they've just killed teams. Particularly, it's been led by Jason Tatum. It's felt like Tatum's kind of felt his way through the first half, right? And then in the third quarter, it's just gone in for the kill, whether it's, he's moving the ball or he's, defending or he's going to the hoop. Whatever the game needs, he seems to give it in that third quarter. And the other Celtics just seem to follow suit. It seems they're playing off of the tone that he's set. And he's been playing at a high level for a long time now, a very, very high level for a long time now. So that's the most interesting thing to me, Mike, is just the way they've come out in third quarters and finished teams off, and they've done it to the Sixers. They did it to the Nets, not the Nets,
the Knicks,
and they did it to the Bulls when they come out of the break. So from there, I'd love to hear your observations on what you're seeing and what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think the teams they're playing have a sense of urgency that you're seeing in the first half because they're fighting for playoff positioning. So the Bulls didn't make they didn't blow up the team. They care. Vucevic had that huge first half where, Porzingis just couldn't figure him out. And then, the Bulls were really locked in and playing hard. You saw the same thing with the Knicks and Jalen Brunson, the way he came out. And then with Philly really throwing, Nick Nurse was doing everything he could to try to win that game with different lineups and 4-guard lineups and unique defenses. And so those first halves, I feel like the Celtics were taking some punches, right? Even though they were the more talented team and probably winning at halftime in all those games just because they were still better, those teams were giving the Celtics problems in the first half. And what I've appreciated and really enjoyed about these last 3 games is the Celtics are adjusting to the game making adjustments at halftime and coming out and attacking certain things that they probably talked about in the locker room. So a great example of that was obviously the second half against Philadelphia. Philadelphia wasn't even helping on drives. They were just literally taking away the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And so the Celtics adjustment in the second half was to just find the matchup or to get guys off screens. You saw the Celtics doing guys cutting to the basket and getting passes off cuts, similar to what Denver does. And it was just a really, really impressive second half in their ability to get to the free throw line. And the difference, obviously, between this year and last year with having Porzingis too, is that they're finding different ways to win because they have the talent to do it. They can be outshot by 3 by a lot and still win games.
It's unseen. You don't see that.
But
it's unbelievable.
And I know people get really nervous when they're seeing it because they're like, oh, NBA teams can't win when they're this outshot by 3. But the Celtics have
I tweeted that.
the Celtics have so much talent that they can outscore you so much in the paint. They can outscore you so much at the free throw line if they're dedicated to that they can beat you when they're outshot by 3. And in that way, they're really similar to Denver. And when the Celtics lock in defensively, like they have been in these second halves, Jim, I don't know if you noticed it, but Porzingis and Al Horford's on-ball defense against Philadelphia in the second half was like, it was playoff intensity, like really, really good. Like if that's what we can expect from those two, that's the Eastern Conference has got a problem. They're going to have a real hard time figuring out the Celtics. I know we'll talk about matchups later, but this team healthy and the way they're playing, and if we can get them to really buy into going to the basket and going to the post as part of their regular offense, that's playoff formula winning basketball. Moving when you don't have the ball, screening when you don't have the ball, having your best players do stuff like that. You're going to win games that way. You're going to win tough playoff battles when you're willing to do the other stuff to get other guys open and create lanes to the basket. Because teams in the playoffs traditionally cover the 3-point line way better than they do in the regular season. And the Celtics adjustments in the playoffs in the past have killed them where they're turning the ball over and they can't figure out a way to finish in the paint. This team is different, and I really like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, the personnel is more suited to that, as you brought up. And they look, the Sixers didn't have a guy over 6'9" in the game the entire fourth quarter. Bamba and Reed were on the bench, so it kind of made it easier. They were defending the 3-point line at a high level, but there was no one in the paint. So if Tatum, named the Celtic, if they could get past that first line, it was going to be a layup or a foul. And that's exactly what happened. And it was
But they were able to do it against the Knicks too. They were able to get to the paint.
Yeah, they were. And I thought that was more impressive, if you want to know the truth. I thought it was more impressive. The Knicks had cut the game down to 8 or 9 points or something like that. And maybe it was even closer in the fourth quarter. And then the Celtics just found a different way to win. And it wasn't just them attacking the basket. It was grinding out defensive rebounds. It was getting steals and turnovers that were leading to transition. It was, really grinding offensive possessions, getting second chance points. And I'm glad you brought up Al Horford because Horford and Holiday were two guys I wanted to talk about in particular. I think Horford's defense, and I don't know if he's made a 3 since the All-Star break. I really don't. I'm sure he has.
Oh, he has.
But it hasn't been many. But
he's made more post shots, though.
Well, that's it. He's gotten a lot of key offensive rebounds. He's taken advantage of mismatches really well on the post. The Celtics have found him way more than they used to, and I think that's a result of him playing with Porzingis at times. And he's in his defense, in particular, his perimeter defense has been really, really good. He had a key block against Alec Burke, who went to abuse him. The Sixers went after him a lot and with some success the other night, but he more than held his own, and he's given them great minutes. He's such an unselfish guy, accepted a role that he's never had before, and you can say he's 38 years old or whatever, and he should, but he's accepted it, and he's done really excellent. And these low minute totals that he's had. There may be games in the playoffs where he has to play much bigger minutes because of matchups, and he's going to be more suited for that this season than he was at any point last season, where you're going to see a much fresher Hal Horford, which is a really good thing. The other guy, Drew Holiday, go ahead.
Al's going to have to match Giannis in some of these playoff series, minutes for minutes.
He'll be needed at times. You're absolutely right, and then Holiday's just been great. He's been great for a while now. What he does is really underrated. The way he switches and can cover anybody, whether it's a bigger guy or a smaller guy. He's caused so many steals with, just incredibly quick hands. He's become such a good defensive rebounder. He always has been that. His shooting from the corners, threes, he's over 60%. His shooting on pull-up threes off the break, he's excellent at it. He's been excellent at it. We have such a top four are so good that I think the quality of his play is being lost. He never tries to do too much. It doesn't feel like he's just been underratedly excellent over the last month or so. And we talked about him on earlier pods if we were disappointed in how he was playing, and he seems more comfortable being here, and his performance has been really, really good.
Going into the Philly game, he had made was like 16 out of his last 17 corner threes.
Unreal.
So he's Abby Chin was interviewing him about it, and he was like, he just looked at it and he's like, yeah, maybe I should be taking more. it's like, yeah, maybe you should.
Well, that's the thing with him too. It's like you heard about the quality of guy he is before he got here, and he's won like the Teammate of the Year award like 3 straight seasons when he was with the Bucks, and you can just see it. You can just see what he brings to the team, the type of person he is. They're lucky to have him. They really are.
Yeah, he seems like a really good person. He just seems really relaxed during interviews. Nothing really changes with him. Kind of need that, especially when you have Jaylen Brown on the team. You need that. Porzingis is a bit of the same kind of personality, actually, too.
Yeah,
I think personalities have been actually really. It's a good. We haven't talked about this, and we probably don't have time today. But Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, those guys weren't like even keel at all. Robert Williams probably was, but those two weren't. And they were outspoken leaders in the locker room. These two are leaders in the locker room that don't have to say much. And when they do speak, it's always something really well thought. KP and Drew. And it just feels like they're both really well liked by everybody. And they've both been able to like adjust their games to fit in to the team rather than like forcing the team to adjust to them. And the other part of it too is you see it like their relationships with Jaylen Brown in particular. The way Jaylen Brown plays a 2-man game with KP is not really anything you would have seen him do with the other guys that went out the door. And Grant Williams is another one. Like, I think he was another addition by subtraction that you're kind of seeing around the league. He's not well liked. So there's something different about that locker room. And I don't want to talk shit about these guys that left, but there's something different about the locker room that also fits into just the way this team conducts itself. I think we're seeing.
I think the thing we definitely know and see is the basketball IQ of the collective group. It's high. Really is high. And I think a lot of that is through experience. Most of these guys are veterans now. This isn't Tatum and Brown in their early years trying to figure out matchups and double teams and things like that. I mean, Tatum out of a double team now is brilliant. Very rarely does he make the wrong pass or read. And then, you talk about the Derek Whites and the obviously Holiday and Horford and Porzingis and Brown's even better. at it now. There's just a lot of guys with high level IQ, basketball IQ that, it's tough to put them in spots. And it's great for Missoula because Missoula can go out and he can try different things like you're seeing. You see Brown now playing with the second unit just to see how that looks and maybe get it better in case, Tatum has to miss a game in the playoffs, right? So you can prepare for that. You see them playing that 2-1-2 that we hate, but sticking with it. And because it gives you another wrinkle for the playoffs if you play a non-shooting team. Like, I don't think you'll see that as a fixture in the playoffs unless if the match dictates that. So you're able to experiment with these different things. One, because you're so ahead in the standings, but two, because you have high-level IQ guys that are willing to accept it and know that you're going to have some struggles from it. But the bigger goal is more important. And, struggle now. Struggle now with those things and then figure it out later on in the playoffs. So I think you're right on all those things, and I think it allows a coach to do and experiment more than your other eyes could have if you didn't have those type of players.
Yeah, Jim. So I have about 15 to 20 minutes left that we can do the pod. And I know you had some good questions put together for us to answer today. I think we should segment towards those. I know you want to talk about the upcoming schedule for the Celtics a little bit. I'll just say that I don't think these games feel important anymore because there's games I don't even look forward to watching, which is weird. I have the NBA League Pass, and there's nights where I'd rather watch Denver or the Clippers play, and the Celtics are on. Because the Celtics have, I think it's a 9-game lead or whatever. But this upcoming schedule, as a basketball fan, I don't know how much these games really matter anymore, but they're going to be good games. We got Cleveland, we got Golden State, we got Dallas, in Denver, we got Milwaukee coming up at the end of the month. I'm probably missing a game or two. I was Phoenix twice, right? So you probably look at those Phoenix games, definitely the Golden State and Denver games as games that are tests for the Celtics. So yeah, it's a good schedule here in March with some really good marquee matchups.
Yeah, I feel like you get through March and then they're just on cruise control. They'll play hard in these marquee matchups, I'm sure, starting tomorrow night in Dallas, especially with an MVP candidate in the house.
Yeah,
you're right. When you play a team like the Sixers the other night, it's even as a fan, you have this expectation for the players to be up and ready to go. But even as a fan, you're like, okay, well, what are we actually watching for here? What's there to gain? And there was, they played a different style and won a different way and got outscored by 30 from 3. So all those things are interesting. But yeah, I think the stretch is going to be fun. And then after that, I think we're all just going to be begging for the playoffs to start. So let's start with these questions. There was a narrative, particularly around the All-Star break, about Tatum not getting consideration for MVP, not because of his play on the court, but because of how he performed in the finals 2 years ago and the Celtics not making the finals last year. I'll let you go first on your thoughts. I have certainly mine, including how the way Tatum handled it afterwards. But go ahead, Mike, on that narrative.
That narrative may be true. Draymond Green certainly put it out there. Guys everywhere, right? Draymond Green's in your face all the time now. I don't think Tatum's not a top 3 MVP candidate. I'm just sorry. And maybe it's because of the roster he's on, and that's part of it. But the numbers that Luka Dončić, and Jokić are putting up, and then what SGA does every single night, he mark it down 31 to 34 points. It's like clockwork with that guy. I just don't know how you compete with those numbers. And MVP is about the numbers, right? Steve Nash won a bunch of MVPs, never won the NBA Finals because of the numbers he put up. And he's a great player, right? And it's not to say that Tatum's not as good as those guys, but his numbers don't show that he's playing as good as those guys, I guess, when it comes down to how we judge an MVP. I don't know how I could argue that Tatum deserves the MVP more than those guys do with just I think Luka's averaging 39 and 8 or something. It's insane numbers. I mean, Russell Westbrook used to win MVPs too, right? So like, he's not better than Jason Tatum, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's what it comes down to. I would pick Jason Tatum over Luka, and I would pick Jason Tatum over SGA when I start my team. But that doesn't mean he's in the MVP conversation. I guess, maybe I'm not being fair. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. As far as how Tatum handled it, I think Tatum's really good with the media. I don't have any issues with how he speaks about himself and what he says. I think he's a confident guy, and somebody should talk to him about, hey, well, maybe the MVP you should be striving for is the NBA Finals MVP, because that's one you can control. That's one you have control over, that you can actually win.
Well, what he actually said I thought was pretty good. He said, I'm not saying I am in that top 3. Those guys have had an incredible season, but the idea that I shouldn't be considered because of, a finals performance or us not making the finals last year is an unfair standard. When you take the top 3 guys. Jokic won MVPs before he won the finals. SGA has done nothing in the playoffs. I don't think he's been past the first round. Luka didn't even make the play-in last year, and hasn't gone to an NBA Finals. So that standard, I'm in agreement with him. That's a stupid standard. If you just want to say you don't think he's in the top 4, you got to throw Giannis in that top 4. I think. I think that's fine. That's completely understandable. But I just think in treating the Celtics like they've been a failure, it's interesting when you don't treat Embiid like he's been a failure. You're not treating Luka like they've all been in the league about the same amount of time, and they've had a lot less playoff success. I mean, Embiid's never been past the second round, and he was the odds-on favorite to win another MVP this year, and he continually gets eliminated by Jason Tatum and the Celtics. In fact, Tatum scored 55 points or whatever it was in Game 7 last year, and Embiid was a complete no-show. So yeah. I just think that whole narrative, not only is it unfair because it only seems to be centered around Jason Tatum, it's just a stupid narrative for any player. It doesn't make sense. And it isn't, you mentioned yourself, Steve Nash won multiple MVPs and never won a final. So what are we talking about here when we start saying that about Jason Tatum? I don't think Tatum's in that top 4. I think he probably leads the second class of players. I think he would be 5th or 6th on that list. A lot of it is, he's on the bench a lot of the fourth quarter in a lot of these games, and then the team doesn't need him to do what these other guys have to do for their teams to be.
I don't think Kobe won MVPs during his Shaq years, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
It wasn't because Kobe wasn't the best shooting guard in the NBA. It was because he didn't have the opportunity to put up these incredible numbers. Get Tatum a season with he's the guy, and he'll be, he can be in that conversation.
And you said something that I thought was right too. You said that you would take him on a team over SGA and Luka, and I think that's 100% true, especially as when you look at them as defenders. But I also don't think Luka could play this way. I don't think he could play team basketball and not being the absolute focal point. It doesn't really matter who's been on Luka's team. He doesn't change his style. And
another guy too that won't be in the NBA MVP conversation, but a guy that I would seriously consider or probably take over Luka is an Anthony Edwards. That's a guy I want. That's a guy I'm going to win with. Jimmy Butler, another one. They're never going to be in the MVP conversations. But you want me to put these guys in a position where I'm going to go try to win a championship? I'm going to go with these guys. MVP doesn't always tell you who the best player is. Really, outside of the Jordan years where he won probably Karl Malone won MVPs over Michael Jordan. Yeah. Think about that.
Barkley won the 1 year. Yeah, I think it was kind of fatigue to give it to him. But a lot of times it does. Embiid was probably the best player last year, and then he got hurt going in the playoffs. Jokic has certainly been the best player in the world for a while.
Certainly.
And he's won them. So let's go to it, Mike. Who is your MVP?
Jokic. He is. I know he didn't play great in the first half, but watch him since the All-Star break, and this isn't going to stop. Did you see his pass against the Wizards? The 80-foot alley-oop to Aaron Gordon?
No, I missed
Did you see
that.
that? Yeah. So, like, this guy is incredible, Jimmy. And, like,
Yeah, he is.
it,
He's just unreal.
like, when you watch him against some of these teams like a Wizards or like Detroit, and you watch him out there, he's just trying new stuff because he's just doesn't respect his opponent.
And I thought he toyed with Draymond when they played the Warriors, just so, like, he played him for the pass on defense every time, and Draymond had like 8 turnovers. He just toyed with him. You know, we talk about basketball IQ.
Yeah, about that he doesn't play hard. Like, watch him on fast breaks. He just looks weird, but he runs his ass off.
Yeah.
Like he is this. It's not even close. A second best player in the league to him, and I'm really worried that nobody in the NBA can beat Denver because of him. I'm really concerned about that.
Maybe
I'm concerned we're going to be talking about 3 or 4 in a row, and this guy is one of the best players to ever play in the NBA.
He is.
I think that's awesome.
He's a physical player. He takes a lot of punishment. He's not a flopper, which I appreciate, which a lot of these guys are. Mine would probably be him, with the caveat. I think if Dallas keeps winning, I would.
Well, Luka's
go Luka if they keep winning. I do think a lot of Luka's stats early in the season were hollow. I think the way Dallas plays, there's not a lot of team basketball at all, and you saw that with the Celtics game. I think he's a very poor defender, Luka. You saw that in the Celtics game again, where Jalen pretty much attacked him for the last 4 or 5 possessions of the game, and Luka couldn't do a thing. And I think if we talk about floppers, I think there's a lot of Embiid and Harden in him, where he flails and bitches, and I don't enjoy watching him play at all. Like, I enjoy and love watching Jokic. I enjoy and love watching SGA. I do not like watching Luka play. But I think if they continue to win, I might, with his numbers, he may be the MVP. I just don't know if they're going to continue to win. We'll see. What's interesting, though, if Dallas gets into the playoffs, outside of a handful of teams like Denver, the Clippers, and the Celtics, that style actually works in the playoffs because you can find isolations and switches, and you can have success. But if you get against
Luka's had,
yeah, well, that's the thing, because you can, in the playoffs, you can just kill mismatches. The problem with teams like Denver and the Clippers and the Celtics, there's not as many mismatches, and that style doesn't work as much.
And as much as I hate the player, Kyrie Irving's had a great season.
He is, and it fits into what they're doing. But like I said, I just don't think Porzingis wasn't good there, and he deserves blame. But now watching this, and Luka's style doesn't really change, and his surrounding cast does not get better. You don't look at his surrounding cast and think a player has gotten better playing with Luka. It just doesn't really happen. The numbers might go up, but you don't think they're really a good player. Look at what Brunson's done since he's left there. He's been outstanding. The biggest challenge out east, Mike, for you, as far as the Celtics go right now?
I just look at matchups, Jim, and I still think Milwaukee has time to figure this out. Yeah. And the other thing that Milwaukee has is size. So I was thinking about this the other day. Like, how do you actually cover the Celtics? Maybe where Milwaukee lacks the wings, they go double bigs with Portis and Lopez, and they put like a Portis on Drew Holiday and try to put Giannis on Tatum. I don't know, but yeah, I think that just that 2-man game with Lillard and Giannis in fourth quarters, if the game is close, that scares me. So even though they don't play great all the time, their effort level is suspect. I just think they are built for the playoffs, and their size and ability to score in the half court, they are built to beat the Celtics. And the Celtics are built to beat them. But I guess, yeah, right now, I know what Cleveland's doing is fun, but and Jim, obviously Miami. I don't give a shit what their record is and how they look. When they play Boston, it's a 7-game series, and it's going to be stressful.
So I think it's Milwaukee still too. I think, and it's nothing that they can do defensively. I think they just don't match up with the Celtics at all on that end of the court. The Celtics just have too many guards and wings that can abuse matchups against Milwaukee, and they don't have enough guys out there that can defend, no matter what their lineups are. Whether they put Giannis on Tatum, then, they'll find a mismatch with Porzingis, or they'll find White or Brown or whomever to go after these less than stellar defenders that they have, particularly Dame in that instance. They're going to hunt him out. But on the other end, I think Dame still remains one of the best clutch perimeter players in this era. And, if he starts to really get going early in games, they become dangerous. And obviously, Giannis is Giannis. So it's still them. The Knicks, if they get healthy, could be a real aggravating team, much of the line like the Heat have been, the way they're built. And they have OG now and some wing defenders. So that's an interesting team to me, too. Mike, you're the head coach of the Celtics. Obviously, talk about the stretch they have, but the 1 seed is wrapped up pretty much. Not only in the East, but also league-wide. How do you manage this team the rest of the way?
I think I'm trying to bring Tatum's minutes down. That's what I'm looking at. He had to play 43 minutes against the Knicks the other night. That's okay. They came out of the All-Star break, they had a long break. They have these consecutive 2 nights off before a game. But now that we're playing every other night again with some back-to-backs, I know he doesn't trust O'Shea Brissett. He doesn't trust Mahailu. Maybe that's playing Sam Hauser way more minutes. But yeah, I think it's time to pull in the reins on Jason Tatum's minutes for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. You got to manage his minutes. I don't think I'm playing Porzingis, Horford, Holiday more than 3 games in a row at any stretch, whether they're back-to-backs or, number of games in between, days in between games or whatever. I think it's time to give those guys as much rest as possible. Horford and Holiday due to their age, and Porzingis due to their injury history. It's all about getting ready for the playoffs now, and that's, the most important thing. The last question for the pod is, who do we fear the most out west? And there's a ton of really good Western Conference teams. When you talk about what the Timberwolves have done this year and they've sustained it, they're for real. Any questions about that, I think, should be thrown out the window right now, what they can do in the half court defensively. Are you going to see Dallas tonight, who's kind of leapfrogged back into that discussion? Whether they stay there, I think, is a real open question. I don't think they will. You have Oklahoma City, who's having, really their breakthrough season. And in the Clippers, who I think are a real threat to potentially, if we talk about one team that can knock off Denver in the playoffs, I think if the Clippers got their shit together, it would be them. And the Suns have the talent. The West is way, just in terms of top teams, is just a much stronger conference in the East this year. Which bodes well for the Celtics, because that means these teams are really going to have to battle out in the playoffs. I think you answered it earlier, Mike. I'm going to just guess you're going to say Denver. So if it's not Denver, who would be your 1B coming out of the West that you would fear the most?
Yeah, it would be the Clippers, despite what a comeback last night by the Lakers, by the way. But LeBron outscored, I think, the Clippers in the fourth quarter, 19-16.
Yeah, and so you throw the Lakers into the Western Conference discussion too, to some extent. Yeah.
And Golden State is going into that Denver game last Sunday night. They were 11-5 since Draymond returned, but I think Golden State's issue is outside of Steph. They just don't have that guy. For me, it's Phoenix and LA. OKC has a lot of talent. I guess I get worried about their experience showing up in a playoff series. But certainly the way they play, the way Oklahoma City plays, makes them a tough matchup. The thing with the Clippers that I don't think gets talked about enough is, do they really have possessions where they don't get a good shot?
Yeah.
Like, they rarely have possessions where they don't get a good shot up, and they're so good in the half-court offense. And then, like, my 1C, right with, like, that Phoenix team is Minnesota because of the way they defend. But Jimmy, Denver, the way they just fit, the way they're built, the way Jokic plays, like Jokic plays in a way that sometimes he looks like he doesn't even want to touch the basketball. He wants to just move around, screen again, and just the way he impacts the game is just so scary with the way those guys play around them, especially Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
The way he's able to cut to the hoop and the way Jokic is able to find him. Jokic touches the ball 100 times a game, which is the most in the NBA, but his usage rate is only 22nd. And think about that and the way he's able to still win and put up crazy numbers. Like when you see him shoot the ball sometimes and he scores, it looks like he's aggravated that he had to shoot it. It's just, and the other thing about Denver is because of their size, with Aaron Gordon playing the 4 and with Michael Porter playing the 3, and the way Pope can defend, right?
ACP, yeah.
They're just a scary team to me, and I think it's Boston, I think it's Denver, I think that's what the NBA Finals is going to be, and I'd be concerned as a Celtics fan going into that series.
Well, the thing that was, where they'd struggle early in the season is when the second unit would come in and the point differential between Jokic's minutes and on off were just huge. But in games that matter to them, and you saw it versus Celtics, Aaron Gordon plays a small it's a small ball 5, right? And they surround, and then they surround their second unit. They play like 7, 8 guys, and Murray's out there with that second unit. It's a completely different look than what you saw early in the year when they went with their backup centers and stuff. And that's what they did in the playoffs as well last year. And it was extraordinarily effective. And it's been really good against really good teams again. So you don't have that huge drop off in the Jokic minutes that you had at points during this year in games that seemed to matter to them. So I think that's the other part of the other wrinkle is we talk about their benches and as good as it was last year. Well, they know how to combat that, barring injury. They're in really good shape. The 1B team is the same. I just think it's the Clippers. I don't know if they're the most likely to dethrone Denver out of all the other Western Conference teams, but they'd be the team that I'd fear the most to match up against the Celtics. I just think they match up really well against what the Celtics do defensively. They have really good wing defenders and George and Kawhi, and they have bigs that, do their job and play their, situational defense well. They're not tremendous shot blockers, but they're in the right spots all the time. And that would be the team that would, really I'd be most concerned about. Timberwolves, they're a good defensive team, but Towns and Gobert, I feel like the Celtics have the medicine on how to deal with them. They're not guys that I think they worry about defensively at all, despite their defensive stats. OKC, I think the Celtics would just kill them with size. And you go down the list, I think you could find a fatal flaw in each one of those teams that the Celtics could abuse. The Nuggets and the Clippers, it just gets much more difficult for the Celtics than I think those other teams. Mike, hey, we're at the end of this pause. Any closing thought from you?
Yeah, the Clippers do a great job of shrinking the floor defensively too, and you saw that in that blowout in Boston. Even with Daniel Tyson in the game, they just took away the pain against the Celtics, and it was really impressive the way they just dominated that game when they were focused in. I think one thing about the Clippers I'd be concerned about is that you have James Harden on your team. So
but you have a great coach. Ty Lue might be one of the very best coaches in the entire league. To kind of counter that.
Yeah, my closing thoughts is really I'm ready for the playoffs to start thinking about matchups and paying attention to some of these other teams and doing our homework. This game with Cleveland coming up is a great opportunity to watch them. They've been playing out of their mind for like 2 months now, so maybe we should be, talking a little bit about Cleveland as we move, because there's certainly a playoff matchup that's going to be there for the Celtics. Miami's won 6 in a row. They're another team to keep an eye on. So I think as we think about the Eastern Conference, start paying attention to some of these teams and what they're doing and how they're playing.
Yeah, Cleveland with the healthy Evan Mobley. How does he match up against Porzingis? We didn't see that earlier in the year. I think that's definitely an interesting wrinkle. I don't think the way Cleveland plays offensively is something that would be effective against the Celtics in a 7-game series. Not saying they don't win next week. They very well could at Cleveland. They're going to be amped up. But I just don't think Cleveland really matches up great against the Celtics in a playoff series. Yeah, Mike, I'm with you. It's time to get to the playoffs. The Celtics, they're like 24-1 against teams under 500. They're the only team with a 500 record against the top 6 teams in the league. They've decimated the Eastern Conference top teams for the most part. They've taken the regular season seriously. We've nitpicked times where we thought they can be better, but no one's taking it more seriously than this team right now. It has 08 vibes to it. But the question becomes, what can they do once we get to the playoffs? Does some of those ugly habits pop up? I want to get there. I'm ready to watch it. I've seen enough of the regular season right now. Unfortunately, we still have over a month to go. So let's just pray they stay healthy and we're ready to roll once this thing starts. That's how I'm going to close. And we'll talk to you much sooner than we did before. That's a promise I'll make, because it's been way too goddamn long since we've jumped on a pod. All right, everyone. Be well.
And Tim, a quick prediction. I think Blake Griffin's going to be on the Celtics within the next 2 weeks.
We'll see. Yeah, I thought so a while ago. I'm kind of off that wagon now, but I hope you're right. All right. See you guys.